typical one.
Today my guest is Carl Franklin. Carl, how are you, sir?
Hi, how are you, David?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited to have you on my show because I'm a big fan. I listen to you on .NET Rocks a lot, but I know you're involved in a lot of other podcasts. You've got, PWOP Productions.
PWOP Productions.
Let me ask this. Does that stand for something?
In World War II, it was an acronym for Pregnant Without Permission.
Okay.
But that's not why. That's not what we do. PWOP is simply the sound of a forehead slap. Let me demonstrate.
Wow. Okay.
It's usually accompanied by its friend, don't!
Mystery solved.
There you go. Now, it's a term that when I was growing up, my brother and I, my circle of friends, that was a PWOP. Usually it was somebody else's forehead that you slap, but it turned, as you grow up and you become more humble, it becomes, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Okay. And you've got a ton of shows on there. You got the Hansel Minutes.
Hansel
Minutes.
Minutes.
Talk about Mondays, which
Mondays,
is
Run As Radio, not safe for work. Mondays, yeah. Run As Radio and DNR TV. Yeah, we produce in a good week 5 shows a week. Could be as many as 6 if we do Mondays.
You know a thing or two about podcasting.
Yeah, I've been doing this for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm relatively new to podcasting. I've got about 130 shows out so far.
Oh, that's not relatively new. That's pretty good.
Yeah, relative compared to you.
You break 100, you're in there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I'm still learning. I'm still learning as I go.
Yeah.
And so that's why I want to talk to you.
Okay.
As I see it, there's really 2 pieces to podcasting. I don't even know if you call mine a podcast because it has video, but
Sure.
But it's a similar premise. There's the technical side. You want everything to look good. You want it to sound good. And I think you guys set the gold standard for that.
Well, thanks.
You've clearly invested a lot
Yeah.
in your production equipment.
Yeah.
And
We've learned how to harness our OCD for the powers of good, David. That's basically what it is.
Yeah. The other side of that is the soft skills, just relating to people and having a good conversation.
Yeah.
Not only I'll enjoy, but the viewers will enjoy.
Right.
So I'd like to talk about both of those if we can.
Sure.
Let's start with the production.
Okay. Well, the production for us was a learning experience. We started off just doing all phone interviews, and we were using these little JK Audio $300 boxes called digital hybrids that would strip out on a telephone. You plug a telephone into it, and you plug the audio into the telephone into this box, and it would strip out the call and split it, because a telephone call is one audio line that contains both what you say and what the other person says, but it's only one signal. So if you're going to separate those, which is really the key to getting a good sounding telephone interview, NPR is sort of the standard for me, because I've been listening to people on the phone in public radio for a long time.
Right.
And you never hear any static, you just hear them on the phone.
Right.
So it separates out using digital signal processing in real time. But the JK Audio product just didn't really cut it enough. So we had to go in and silence out everything, all the silence between when we were speaking, because it would sound like...
You would do that post-production?
Post-production, yeah. So then we finally discovered the Telos 1+1, or the Telos 1.
That's a hardware?
The Telos 1 is a piece of hardware, and it is a digital hybrid, but it's what NPR uses and it's what everybody else uses. It does such a good job that you cannot hear the person talking when you're just recording the person listening. Basically, it masks it out. Like it knows your signal from your microphone, and then it identifies that signal on the telephone line and cuts it out, leaving only the signal that's not there. So it does a little differential kind of.
Are you still using that today?
We use those today, yeah.
Okay. I assumed you use like Skype or something like that.
No, in fact, I hate Skype. And let me tell you, and not only do I hate Skype, but I hate voice over IP in general. Anytime I can't tell you how many times we've had somebody on the phone, and when they talk, and that breakup is because you're subjecting your signal to the internet and all of its interference and ups and downs and bandwidth usage. Whereas, a telephone line is a piece of hardware, and there's a switch, and it says, okay, you're going to go down this wire. So it's always more accurate.
Okay.
It doesn't sometimes have the sound quality because you can get a little bit better sound quality out of Skype in terms of, the frequency range that it will pick up. The telephone's a very narrow band.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people are just used to hearing people on the telephone anyway.
Yeah.
And so we decided that we'll use Skype if we have to, and we have done that before, and we'll use VoIP if there's no other option. But when you hear those episodes of .NET Rocks where some weirdness is happening, it's usually because of a voice over IP solution.
Okay. And you also do in-person interviews sometimes.
Yes.
In fact, I know you did one just a few minutes ago with Bill
Right.
Jackson.
Yep.
What do you use for that?
So for that, we use a Zoom portable recorder. For years, we've used Marantz products, and we had a nice Marantz portable solid-state recorder that uses a CF card and everything. And, it was a little bit overkill, complexity-wise. It became very complex. We knew it was complex when we lost a show that we had recorded live in front of an audience at Dev Connections with Scott Guthrie. Yeah.
You don't lose Scott.
Yeah, you don't lose. It was really embarrassing. But we had this great show, and, something didn't get pushed in the right way, or some button didn't get set, because there's a lot of dials and switches. There's so many dials and switches on the Marantz that they actually cover some of them up with a little plate that has screws on it, so that you have to take it off with a screwdriver to set them.
Okay.
There's so many, but now we use a Zoom. I think it's a H4n. So it has preamps built in. It has phantom power. It runs on batteries.
What does that phrase mean?
Phantom power is essentially, you have two types of microphones: dynamic microphones and condenser microphones. Dynamic microphones actually move an electrical capacitor based on the sound pressure and directly turn that into current. And they do not require the power that a condenser microphone uses. A condenser microphone operates at a very low power. A condenser microphone operates with a membrane that's very sensitive. And that membrane has a different mechanism for converting the pressure into sound. It's a lot more sensitive pressure-wise. And it requires power in order for it to work. It operates at very low power. So mixing boards and preamps and whatever you plug these microphones into started having this button called phantom power that would, when you press it, would supply 48 volts of power to the microphone. And even the best microphones that have been used in the audio industry for years have been condenser microphones, even back in the World War II days when you had, Billie Holiday singing on a big radio microphone.
Okay, so this technology has been around a long time. It hasn't evolved that much.
Right, but what has evolved is you no longer need a switch. They still have a switch. Basically, what would happen in these old mixing boards is if you had the power on and you plugged in a dynamic microphone, all mayhem would break loose. So they finally figured, it would just sound bad.
Oh, I see.
They would, sorry about that. It would sound horrible. It would be bad. It could ruin equipment.
Australia.
Because you would be supplying power to the microphone that doesn't need it, and So, but they figured out in the hardware how to make them completely transparent. So now they still have the switch on 48 volts phantom power even on these devices, and on Mackie mixing boards that are sort of the industry standard. You'll see them, but you pretty much can keep them on all the time. There's no need for you to shut them off when you're not using a condenser mic.
Okay.
So we use portable condenser microphones. We use Shure Beta C 87C microphones. They're sort of handheld, and they're small diaphragm condenser microphones. They have their diaphragms about that big.
I have a microphone.
The ones
there.
we use in the studio.
Pretend to hold on here. Let me see. This sounds like what you're describing. It's not the same.
Yeah, the ones we use in the studio are those. That's an Audio Technica.
Yes, it is. In fact, I bought this because I heard you talk to a mutual friend, John Keller, about this microphone.
This is what we use for .NET Rocks. This is an Audio Technica 2020. Yeah, good microphone. It's, about what, 100, 200 bucks,
less than
something like that. Yeah. And so this is a large diaphragm microphone and condenser microphone, and it's got a bigger diaphragm, and like I said, it's a very sensitive thing. If you drop this, you could actually damage it.
Okay.
So for that reason, when you travel with it, you want to put it in a case, and think of it as a light bulb. It's that sensitive. It's got a very, very sensitive membrane in it. So, but the upside is they sound great, and we use these in the studio. As a matter of fact, we use 2010s sometimes, the $99 version.
Okay.
And really, for just talking, $100, $200 microphone like this is going to sound great.
That's good for me. I'm kind of on a low budget.
You don't need anything above that would be overkill because
Okay.
you typically don't have a lot of pressure.
Do you have it here?
Oh, no.
Here, or what it is?
So when you use one of these, there's a front and a back, and the back actually has a label back there.
Uh-huh.
This face right here is what's picking up the sound. So typically when you're using a microphone like this, you want it to be on a 45-degree angle across your mouth and about this far from your mouth.
So you would need two of those if you're having a conversation.
Yeah, if I'm having a conversation, we actually have recording booths that have one in each booth, and they face each other with a glass in between.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody comes to the studio and we do face-to-face, we'll do that so we can have separation. But if the closer you get to a microphone, you'll get what's called a proximity effect. You'll get a lot of bass, and it'll sound good, but too close it's going to be too bassy.
Okay.
So you really want to be about 3 inches at a 45-degree angle, and that's essentially how we record all our shows.
All right.
Yeah. And we also don't, as far as setting levels, setting record levels. Back in the days of analog tapes, the rule was when you're recording an album, let's say, or a CD onto a cassette, you want to jack up that record level so that it goes a little bit into the red, but not so far that it distorts. Okay. A little bit into the red. Well, digital is totally different. You don't want to come anywhere close to the red, which is 0, or it'll clip. So it's better. Clipping means too much signal. Here's what clipping means to a programmer. Every sample uses 16 bits or 2 bytes of data. All right. So the value, and that's amplitude. The value can either be 0 for absolutely quiet, or integer dot max, what max value, whatever that is, and I can't even remember. 65, whatever, 128.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I'll say a lot. Many.
So absolute top is the highest number that 16 bits can represent. Okay. So somewhere in the middle, of course, anywhere in the middle, it's going to sound good. If it goes past the top, you'll get an arc that looks, a regular arc of a wave has a nice crest on it. But if it goes to the top, it's like...
Okay, what does that sound like?
It sounds like this. That's pretty much what it sounds like. It doesn't sound good. In analog, when you go into the red, it has a warm, distorted, warm sound, and people talk about analog warmth, being like the sound of an LP sounds warm, and CDs sound harsh. Well, CDs sound harsh to those people because analog warms up the sound unnaturally, and it's pleasant, but it's not accurate.
Interesting.
So we use the Telos and these things in the studio for phone interviews. We use the Zoom. When we get everything together, get all those WAV files together, we use Adobe Audition to do the editing. Now, I know on a budget, a lot of people will use Audacity and stuff, but we discovered Audacity after Audition and sort of have our set core tools that work really well. Yeah. One of the things that we use in the first thing we do when we get our files together is we prep them. And by prepping, what we do is we hard limit them so that the sound, the volume of the track is up to a good level. And hard limiting raises the volume, and when it gets to the top, instead of letting it clip, it actually limits it. It makes a nice smooth.
Oh, okay. And that's what analog does naturally. It doesn't hit that wall on top. It just kind of
smooths it out. Well, sort of, but analog clipping is totally different. It's a harmonic distortion. This is actual, clipping in digital.
So you do occasionally. Somebody will shout or exclaim, or slap their forehead, right? And you get a loud. Something loud there, and you want to get rid of that plateau.
Well, in that case, there's clip restoration, which is another feature that you can do. If somebody claps or laughs or something and it spikes, typically it's not a problem because it's a transient. It goes away quickly.
Okay.
But if somebody goes, woo, you know, and has this long, distorted, crappy sound, you can actually restore the clips by, it estimates the top of the waves.
Okay.
And brings it back down to a good level. And it works most of the time. But hard limiting raises the volume of something that's softer and brings it up to the top, and then things that would have naturally clipped, it limits them so that that they sound good. So we do that, and then we do noise reduction. Anytime if you witness a live recording of .NET Rocks, we ask everybody to hold their breath for 5 seconds. And that gives you the ambient noise, like the fan that's in the background.
I hear it.
Yeah, you hear it. And that while that kind of stuff is okay, if you're an ambient sound is good if you want to convey that we're out at a convention, you know, with a lot of people. There's a lot of people around. You hear them in the background.
Right.
You know, hey, I'm in Times Square and the ball's about to drop. I mean, that's exciting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an exciting sound. But just ambient, hissy kind of noise isn't really exciting.
Right.
It doesn't really do anything for you. So we take that out. And there's all sorts of noise on the phone tracks usually. We also can go in with a thing in Audition called Spectral View. And sometimes the well, let me tell you the problem first. The problem is sometimes on a phone track especially, you'll get these strange hums and whines and buzzes that just last for, I don't know, a few minutes. But they're at a very narrow section of the spectrum. They're very narrow, and they just, you know, maybe like we don't know where that comes from. The phone company, the Telos, we don't really know. But in Spectral View, you see time going left to right, just like normally. But it's a color map. And the intensity of the color, of the frequencies go from low frequencies at the bottom of the Y scale to really high frequencies at the top of the Y scale. And the intensity and saturation of the color shows you what frequencies are dominant.
Oh, so at a glance you can tell if that's happening inside.
Yeah, at a glance you'll see a line, a purple line through,
Okay.
going through at a certain point, and you can actually highlight it, zoom in, select it, and delete it.
Nice.
Yeah, you
Okay.
can't do that with a regular equalizer as easily. I mean, you can visually see. And so if it's narrow enough, it won't affect the overall sound. That just noise will be gone.
Okay.
So we do all that kind of stuff. And
How much time do you spend? Well, let me ask you this. Are you the one that's doing this, or have you hired someone to do it? And how much time does it spend doing it?
I did the first 50 shows by myself, and I figured out how to do all this stuff. And then I hired some local guys, and they're both musicians. They're both audio guys, and they wanted, you know, they're computer savvy, and they wanted to learn how to do this. So I hired those guys. And my brother Jay also does the editing for DNR TV,
Okay.
which is an audio edit and a video edit.
Okay. When you do audio edit, when you do DRTV, which is more similar to what I'm doing here, are you exporting that audio and editing it separately, or are you editing it inside of the video editing tool? So, for example, I use Premiere Elements to edit mine, and it has audio capabilities, but doesn't have the features that you described.
Right. We do two things. Well, first we use Camtasia, usually.
Correct.
Yep. So
It's a
our
Michigan-based
video
product.
is TechSmith, great company, and Camtasia is awesome. So that takes a video of your screen, and what I bring into the video is usually, if I'm on the phone, I will get my microphone on one side and the telephone track on the other side. So that turns into a separate WAV file, and an audio edit's done first.
I see. So you actually record them separately. You're
Yeah.
not even recording it to the video track.
Well, I'm actually recording that into the AVI file
Okay.
with Camtasia. And if I'm using microphones, I'll go on one side, he'll go on the other. So it all goes into one.
All right.
I have done it where we just record with the laptop audio for the video, and then I use the Zoom with my microphones, you know,
Okay.
because I get more control over the audio that way.
Right.
In that case, we don't have to export it, but we do end up lining them up.
Right.
You know, we use Sony Vegas, which is a .NET app.
Sony Vegas. Okay.
Yeah, it's
All
a
right.
WPF app.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's cool. So anyway, that's how we do it. We do an audio edit first, and Jay watches the video as it's happening, and any time that there's audio that isn't going to be in the final edit, he'll take that out.
Okay.
But leave the space. He'll mute it.
Right.
He'll leave the space so it still lines up to the video. Then go in and do a video edit, and now he's got room to move stuff around.
Okay. Hey, let me show you a piece of hardware here.
Okay.
And because this device here, I bought it not too long ago.
Yeah.
And it doesn't plug directly, and this is the cable I have to plug directly into my video camera.
Right.
So I had to get something in between there. And so I got this board here.
There's one more thing I can say about this,
Yeah.
by the way. Stands. When you get a stand,
Uh-huh.
a lot of people like to get desk mic stands, table mic stands. Not good. Here's why. That doesn't work. Get a floor stand if you're going to
Oh, okay.
put your microphone.
It's a little harder
on
to
the
travel
stand.
with that, but
Harder to travel with it, but you know
it's worth what you're saying.
Otherwise, you have to have people keep their hands off the table.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And if they got a laptop or something, that'll ruin that.
There's a guy over there with a laptop.
Yeah, Richard's over there working on the laptop.
Good thing
Not
we weren't
saying
talking
much.
about it. So here's
So it's
this
a little,
machine here, a little mixer board. I don't. This is kind of Martian to me. I just don't understand all the stuff. It didn't come with a manual.
Okay.
Ordered it online. Maybe you can explain some of the cryptic
Yeah, I'd love to.
things on here.
Let's take a
I need to
look.
understand it better. Let me get
So
my
this
eyes
is your main output. So
on.
this is
Pull this
going
out
to
of
your
here so these cables make sense.
camera, right? This goes to your
looks
camera.
like that is. Yeah. Here's the other end of it here. It's a bit taller.
1/8" jack. Got your
And I've got power cord right
cord.
here.
I'll take that out.
Just take
so
that
I
out
can
and
move
assume
this
they're in
around.
here. And of course I've got a cable also
All right.
that goes to the microphone.
Well, what you're looking at here is a line mixer. You have two microphone inputs here, and then there's another stereo channel that has line inputs. You also have line inputs here. So the difference between mic and line inputs is this. Everything in a mixer operates at a line level, and that's at a level where there's a certain amount of power applied to it. Microphones are very low power, so they need a preamplifier to amplify them, to bring them up to power. That's why a microphone input is different than a line input.
Okay.
You can tell a microphone input because it will have three wires, three connections, and sometimes you can use line inputs that are 1/4 inch, but they have two jacks, two lines around them. So they have tip, ring, and sleeve, as opposed to just tip and ring.
Okay.
So there's three connections, and those can be used as microphone inputs as well. So those are called balanced.
All right. So what I'm
inputs.
thinking is that I only own one microphone, but if I'm going to use this, I probably should buy a second microphone so each of us can keep it
Yeah,
about 3 inches from our face.
yeah, exactly.
Which is not too bad. Another $100.
Yeah, it's not
so,
bad.
I don't want to spend thousands.
And if you're going to be on the road, better to get a handheld small diaphragm condenser mic than two of these.
Okay.
It's just easier for people to hold a mic than you to bring out two stands and have people, and they sound really good. So you have your trim pot here, which the way to mix audio levels is this. So you start with the level, which is the fader at the bottom, at a nominal or unity gain, which is straight up, 12 o'clock. That's where you start. And your main mix as well at unity gain. Everything should be 12 o'clock. If you have faders, they should be at 0, or there's a little symbol for unity there.
Okay.
Then adjust the volume with the trim pot.
Okay. So you're saying that get these at 12 o'clock and then don't touch them. Just leave them big.
Yeah, leave them big.
All my adjustments should be here.
All of your adjustments should be here with the trim pot.
And that's really basically just a volume, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that if you're a loud guy and if I got two microphones and you're much
Yeah.
louder than me, I want to just turn you down, turn me up, or whatever.
Because the reason is this. When you tune it past unity, you're amplifying.
Okay.
When you turn it lower than unity, you're resisting. All right, so you're adding noise no matter what. If it's at unity, you're not adding noise. This is an amplifier here. So you want to just bring the amplifier up as much as you can, as
Okay.
much as you need.
Okay.
There's two buttons right here above each trim pot. One is a high pass filter, and it's really a low cut, but it's called high pass, and I don't know if you can see that line that goes like this. Okay, Here, I'll put this down so I can stop moving it around. But the line looks like it goes right to left and then drops sharply off at a diagonal on the left. That means that anything past 80 hertz, which is down in the low spectrum, is cut. And that's just really good, because you're not going to want to end up with frequencies down that low anyway. You know, the only thing that you would need down there is like a bass guitar. All right. So it's a good idea to just turn those low cuts on. And high pass means the lows are allowed to go through, but the highs are allowed to go through, so they can pass through the filter. But I don't know why they don't just call it a low cut filter. This right here is an instrument button, and this is there's a different level needed for instruments like guitars and basses and keyboards than line level. It's at a different level, so that's what that's for. Then you have two bands of EQ here, high and low, and you know, you can experiment with these. I'd like to just keep these off. When I'm recording, I don't want to color the sound in any way digitally. I just want to get a good signal. So typically I won't do any EQ going in. If I do any EQ on a vocal, a singing vocal usually, I'll boost a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 dB at 10K, and make sure I've got a low cut on, and it usually sounds really good, especially with a condenser microphone like that at 3 inches. I mean, that's where you get the good sound. But if you boost a little at 10K, that's where the air is in people's voice. So when you're singing or even speaking, it just sounds better if you have a little bit of that in there. So the signal flow goes from the input through these filters, through the gain amplifier, the trim pot, down through the EQ, and then finally this level right here. All of these get summed at the main mix, which is right here. You have a phantom power button right there that should be on, especially if you're going to have condenser microphones. But even if you have it on and you're using dynamic mics, that's fine too. This sends out your headphone. This is your headphone mix right there. These are the main outs, left and right. Those are line level outs. And you also have tape in and tape out. These are just two other outputs that use RCA, or two inputs and two outputs that use RCA jacks. Typically, sometimes if you have a recorder or something that has RCA inputs, like a tape deck used to, you know, you can come right out of there, and it's essentially what comes out of the main mix. Right here, there's a tape in channel right there. So that's a gain for whatever you plug into this. And there's a button there to assign that to the main mix also. You can take that out if you don't want to hear it, but you just want something coming in. Don't know why, but there you go. And then that's about it. Main outputs right here are line level outs. They go to your recording device, like you saw. David had this connected to his camera. But again, keep all of these at unity. Adjust right here. Keep your EQ off, phantom power on, low cut filter on. You don't want instrument on for microphones. So there you go.
Excellent.
That's how it works.
So let me just, for my own personal preferences here, I've got the line in, the one on the left.
Yeah.
Here, I see the diagram you're talking about. It is down.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically is down or up. That's it.
Yeah.
The one on the right is up.
Yeah.
And I would do that
No
on
more
the second
instruments.
microphone.
No
I'd do either one of them.
Yeah.
These buttons down here, or these knobs down here, equalizer and leveling. Just keep the 12 o'clock.
Yep.
Do all your adjusting right here.
Yep.
And then I can listen to it from here. I had one other question. What about if I have two microphones?
Mm-hmm.
Is that going to? Are they both automatically going to be sent out through to the camera?
Good question. Typically, you have panning left and right, but that's not how this works. There is no pan on this, so there. Yeah, oh no, there is panning here. There's a button. There's a button here. Says stereo panning. So that means this goes out the left and this goes out the right.
Okay. So if it's pressed down, that means that I've got two channels, but I don't think I have two inputs on my camera. So I
Right.
really
If you
not
have a
pressed out.
stereo input, and yeah, if you have a stereo input, which I think it is. Oh no, that looks like a mono input. But
no,
most
no.
inputs are stereo.
Okay.
That is a mono cable, however. So you would need an 1/8" cable that has 2 rings around it.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And in that case, you would need to go out left and right, but you're only
Okay.
using one. If you had something that had a stereo recording jack, you'd need to get an adapter from these two to that 1/8" jack and press this button down right there, which means that this channel goes to the left and this goes to the right.
Okay.
And that's good if you have 2 microphones. Otherwise, they're both gonna just be dead center, and there won't be any separation.
Okay. Well, a lot of mine are viewed on the web, so that's probably okay. But sometimes, actually, these are on local public access
Mhm.
back in Michigan where I live.
Yeah, I would try
So
to
it's
use
on the big
stereo if
screen.
you could. I would try to use stereo if you could.
Outstanding. Well, Carl, thank you so much. I
You're
think
welcome.
I'm going to have you back here if you don't mind, and
Sure.
we'll talk about the soft skills part of it.
Okay, sure.
The faders down, stretch out a leg and bend my head around. Just floating on a dream cloud, going nowhere fast. Pushing out the shadows, sucking in the gas. Lost in sparkleland, I'd be here all day. Wake up, Poppy, come back to earth. You know superlative. The trash is rancid, the oven's hot.
Either you have technology or you have friends. Choose one.